Dr. James Carter's hands trembled slightly as the shuttle descended toward Nexus Prime. He pressed his palms against his thighs, a habit from childhood that his mother had tried to break. He could still hear her voice. "James, you're a scientist. Scientists don't show fear." But his mother had never faced what he was about to face. Through the viewport, Nexus Prime grew larger, a massive ring-shaped station that orbited the neutron star called Hope's End. The station was deliberately built in this hostile location, equidistant from all major empires, ensuring no single power could claim it. Here, in the crushing gravity well and lethal radiation of a collapsed star, the Galactic Assembly conducted its most sensitive business. "First time at the Nexus?" asked the shuttle pilot, a four-armed Kethian whose translator rendered her chittering into perfect English. "Yes," replied James, keeping his voice steady. The pilot's mandibles clicked in what James had learned was amusement. "I went through it 20 cycles ago. Worst 3 minutes of my life. The Velkhari don't mess around." James had read everything available about the Velkhari Dominion. They were the undisputed masters of mental manipulation, a species that had evolved telepathy so advanced they could literally consume memories, absorbing entire lifetimes of experience in seconds. For 3,000 years, they had served as the Assembly's enforcers, using their abilities to maintain peace through perfect knowledge. No one could lie to a Velkhari. No one could hide secrets. No one could plot rebellion or treachery without being discovered. Their power had brought stability to a galaxy that had once torn itself apart in endless wars, but it had also brought fear. The shuttle docked with a soft clang. James gathered his minimal belongings, personal items weren't allowed at the screening, and made his way through the airlock. The station's interior was utilitarian, all gray metal and harsh lighting. Signs in 17 languages directed newcomers to Processing Center 7. James joined a line of beings from across the galaxy, all here for the same reason: a crystalline entity that communicated through light pulses, a methane-breathing creature in an environment suit, a pair of hive-minded insectoids who moved in perfect synchronization, all waiting to have their minds laid bare before the Velkhari. "Dr. James Carter, representing humanity," he said when he reached the registration desk. The clerk, a junior official from the Velkhari, didn't look up from her datapad. She was humanoid in shape, but taller and thinner, with skin the color of deep water and eyes that were entirely silver, no pupils or whites, just mirrors reflecting James's own nervous face. "Species classification, unverified," she said, in a voice like wind through empty corridors. "You're the first human to undergo assembly screening. Unusual for a species to send a lone representative. Earth's governments couldn't agree on who to send, so they sent a civilian scientist instead." The clerk's lips curved in something that might have been a smile. Politics, the one constant across all species. She handed him a crystalline badge. "Wear this at all times. Report to Chamber 9 in 1 hour. Do not eat or drink anything. Do not attempt to meditate or alter your mental state. High Inquisitor Thelvas will conduct your screening personally." James's stomach dropped. The High Inquisitor? I thought junior officials handled initial screenings. "Normally, yes, but you're the first human. The Dominion takes no chances with unknown species." Her silver eyes fixed on him. "Be grateful. Thelvas is the most skilled memory reader alive. If anyone can understand your alien mind, it's him. And if he can't—" She didn't finish the sentence. The hour passed too quickly. James sat in a waiting room, watching other beings emerge from their screenings. Some looked relieved, others looked traumatized. One species, a tripedal creature covered in sensory tentacles, had to be carried out catatonic. "That was a bad one," whispered the crystalline being next to James. "Sometimes the Velkhari find memories so disturbing they have to purge them. The subject doesn't recover well." "What kind of memories?" asked James. "War crimes, genocide, child abuse. The Valkyrie record everything they see. If they find evidence of major crimes, the subject goes straight to the justice cells. The being pulsed nervously. I hope my business dealings were all legal. I thought they were, but memory is unreliable, you know? Sometimes you forget the details that might incriminate you. James nodded, though he was barely listening. His mind was racing through everything he knew about Valkyrie mental techniques. They didn't just read surface thoughts. They dove deep, accessing memories the subject had completely forgotten, pulling out childhood traumas, suppressed desires, everything that made a person who they were. The process was described as intimate violation, a kind of mental rape that left subjects feeling hollow and exposed. But there was no choice. Every species that wanted to join the Galactic Assembly had to submit to screening. It was the price of admission to a galaxy-spanning civilization. Dr. Carter, a Valkyrie attendant, stood in the doorway. Chamber 9 is ready. James stood on legs that felt like water. He followed the attendant down a long corridor lined with doors, each leading to a screening chamber. Behind those doors, minds were being opened, secrets spilled, lives laid bare. Chamber 9 was smaller than James expected, circular with walls that seemed to absorb light. In the center stood a simple chair, and across from it, a raised platform where High Inquisitor Thelvas waited. James had seen images of Valkyrie before, but none had prepared him for Thelvas's presence. The Inquisitor was ancient, his water-dark skin lined with patterns that marked centuries of mental absorption. His silver eyes held depths that made James feel like he was falling. When Thelvas moved, it was with the deliberate grace of someone who had consumed thousands of lifetimes and carried the weight of all those memories. Dr. Carter. Thelvas's voice resonated directly in James's mind, bypassing his ears entirely. I have conducted 63,000 screenings across 412 species. Yours will be my first human. Please sit. James sat, trying to control his breathing. The chair adjusted itself to his body, restraints flowing like liquid metal around his wrists and ankles. The restraints are for your protection, Thelvas explained, descending from his platform. Some subjects experience seizures during deep memory extraction. We cannot have you injuring yourself.
How long does it take? James's voice sounded small in the light-absorbing room.
For most species, 3 to 5 minutes. For complex minds, perhaps 10. I will know everything about you, Dr. Carter. Every memory from your birth to this moment. Every lie you've told. Every law you've broken. Every dream you've had. There is no privacy before a Valkyrie Inquisitor. Thelvas extended one long-fingered hand toward James's face. One warning. Do not resist. Resistance causes pain, both to you and to me. Allow the memories to flow. Relax your mind and think of nothing. Are you ready? James wanted to say no. He wanted to run, but he thought of Earth waiting for his report. He thought of humanity's future among the stars. He nodded. Thelvas's fingers touched James' temples. For a moment, nothing happened. James felt a slight tingling like static electricity. Then he felt Thelvas's presence in his mind, a vast and ancient consciousness that began to pull at his memories like someone opening drawers in a filing cabinet. James saw his own life flash past, his childhood in Denver, his mother's death when he was 12, his first kiss, his doctorate in xenopsychology. Every moment appeared and was consumed by Thelvas's voracious mental appetite. Then something changed. James felt Thelvas hesitate. The smooth extraction of memories stuttered like a record skipping. The Inquisitor's presence in James's mind suddenly felt confused, then alarmed. What is this? Thelvas's mental voice was no longer calm. Your memories, they branch. They loop back on themselves. James didn't understand what the Inquisitor meant. He tried to explain, but Thelvas was going deeper, following the strange architecture of human memory. And as he did, James felt the Inquisitor's confusion turn to horror. "You remember remembering," Velvos whispered, and his voice carried a note of fear. "You have memories of thinking about your memories, and memories of those memories. It goes back, and back, and back." The Inquisitor's fingers were trembling now. James could feel Velvos's consciousness beginning to spiral, caught in loops of recursive memory. The Valkyrie was trying to track a single memory to its source, but every memory led to another memory of remembering that memory, which led to another memory of thinking about remembering, on and on in infinite regress. "Stop," Velvos commanded, but James didn't know how to stop. This was just how human minds worked. We didn't just remember things, we remembered remembering them. We thought about our thoughts. We had opinions about our opinions. Our consciousness folded back on itself in endless layers of self-reference. Velvos made a sound like breaking glass. His silver eyes went wide, no longer reflecting James's face, but something else, something vast and recursive that spiraled into infinity. The Inquisitor's hand was still on James's temples, but now it was clenched, fingernails digging into skin. "Too deep, falling, can't find the bottom, memories of memories of memories of—" The Inquisitor's body went rigid, his mouth opened in a silent scream. Then, like a puppet with cut strings, he collapsed to the floor. Alarms began shrieking. The chamber door burst open and Valkyrie medical staff rushed in, followed by armed guards. They surrounded Velvos's convulsing form, scanners flashing. "What did you do to him?" one of the guards demanded, weapon trained on James. "Nothing," James protested, still locked in the chair. "He was reading my memories and then he just—" "Quiet." The lead medic was running a device over Velvos's head. "His neural patterns are impossible. He's stuck in a recursive loop. His consciousness is trapped, cycling through the same pattern over and over." Another medic checked her readings. "The pattern matches the human's memory structure. It's like Velvos's mind got caught in the human mental architecture and can't find a way out." The guards looked at each other, then at James with expressions mixed fear and hostility. One spoke rapidly into a communicator. "This is Chamber 9. We have a code absolute. High Inquisitor Velvos is down. The human subject appears to have weaponized mental defenses, requesting immediate quarantine protocols." "I didn't do anything," James shouted, still locked in the chair. "I didn't even know humans were different." But nobody was listening. They were too busy trying to save Velvos, who lay on the floor, eyes staring at nothing, trapped in an infinite loop of human recursive memory. James sat in his restraints, watching the chaos unfold, and realized that humanity's first contact with the Galactic Assembly had just gone catastrophically wrong. And somewhere in the back of his mind, a small voice whispered, "If the most powerful telepath in the galaxy couldn't handle a single human mind, what did that mean for everyone else?" The answer would terrify the galaxy. 3 days passed before they let James out of the isolation cell. 3 days of questions, accusations, and fear. Through the transparent walls, he watched Valkyrie officials argue in their soundless mental language, their silver eyes flashing with emotions he couldn't read. None of them would come close enough to touch him. Dr. Seema Okonkwo arrived on the 4th day. She was the second human to reach Nexus Prime, sent by Earth when news of the incident spread. Tall and commanding, with gray-streaked hair pulled back in a practical bun, she had been James's mentor at the Xenopsychology Institute. "They're terrified of you," she said, settling into the chair across from his in the visitation room. A force field hummed between them. The Valkyrie insisted on it. "Terrified of all of us, actually. I had to threaten to leave and take humanity's application with me before they'd even let me in the building." "How's Velvas?" James asked. Seema's expression darkened. "Alive, but not conscious. Not unconscious either. The Valkyrie doctors say he's trapped in what they call a recursive fugue. His mind is cycling through the same pattern over and over, like a song stuck on repeat, except the song is your memory structure." "I didn't mean for it to happen." "I know, but that doesn't change the situation. Seema leaned forward. James, I need you to explain exactly what you felt when Thilvas touched your mind. James closed his eyes, trying to reconstruct those final moments. At first, it was like he was flipping through a photo album. My memories just appeared and he absorbed them. Then he seemed confused. He said something about memories branching and looping back. Memories of remembering, Seema said softly. Yes, that's exactly what he said. He said I had memories of thinking about my memories. And then he just fell into them, like he couldn't find his way back out. Seema pulled out a datapad. While you were in isolation, I spoke with every Velkari scientist willing to talk to me. I also reviewed every piece of human neuroscience research we have. James, I think I understand what happened. She activated a holographic display that showed comparison between Velkari and human brain structures. The Velkari mind is linear. They remember events as a stream, one thing after another in perfect sequence. When they absorb someone's memories, they consume that stream from beginning to end. It's like reading a book. They start at chapter 1 and read through to the end. But human minds don't work that way, James said, beginning to understand. Exactly. Human consciousness is recursive. We don't just remember events, we remember remembering them. Every time you recall something, you create a new memory of that recollection, and then you can remember that memory. We think about our thoughts. We have feelings about our feelings. Our minds loop back on themselves constantly. The hologram shifted, showing human neural pathways that doubled back, interconnected, formed endless cycles. When Thilvas tried to read your memories, he entered that loop. He tried to find the original memory, the source, but every memory he found was a memory of another memory. He went deeper and deeper, following the trail backward, but there is no end. Human consciousness is like a hall of mirrors. Every reflection shows another reflection, infinitely. James stared at the hologram. So his mind got stuck trying to find the bottom of something that has no bottom. Worse than stuck. The Velkari consciousness isn't built to handle recursion. It's like running software that requires infinite memory on a computer with finite capacity. His mind locked up trying to process the impossible. Can they fix him? Seema's expression was grim. They don't know. The Velkari have never encountered this before. In 3,000 years of screening thousands of species, they've never found a mind that could trap one of their inquisitors. A Velkari doctor appeared on the other side of the force field. She was young, her skin still bright, eyes not yet dulled by centuries of absorbed memories. Dr. Okonkwo, Dr. Carter, the council has agreed to allow limited testing. We need to understand this phenomenon before we can cure High Inquisitor Thilvas. They were taken to a research facility deep within Nexus Prime. The room was filled with monitoring equipment, all focused on a single chair where Thilvas lay, if you could call it lying. His body was suspended in a medical stasis field, perfectly still except for his eyes which moved rapidly beneath closed lids, tracking patterns only he could see. "He's dreaming?" James asked. "He's trapped in your memory structure," the doctor replied. Over and over, he follows a memory back to its source, but each source is just another memory. He's been cycling for 96 hours. We don't know how to break the pattern without potentially destroying his mind. 3 more humans had arrived from Earth, a neuroscientist, a cognitive psychologist, and a philosopher who specialized in consciousness studies. Together with Velkari scientists, they began the most intensive study of human cognition ever attempted. "Let me try something," said Dr. Wei Chen, the neuroscientist. He was a slight man with quick movements and quicker thoughts. The Velkari were reluctant, but eventually a volunteer came forward, a junior memory reader named Kestrel, who claimed to be skilled enough to pull back before getting trapped. "I'll just touch the surface thoughts," Kestrel explained, her silver eyes nervous. "I won't go deep, just enough to map the basic structure." Dr. Chen sat in the examination chair. "Ready when you are." Kestrel approached cautiously, extending one hand. Her fingers touched Chen's temple. For 5 seconds, nothing happened. Then Kestrel jerked backward with a gasp.
It's the same, she said, breathing hard. The same impossible structure. I felt myself beginning to fall into the loops. If I had gone any deeper. She looked at Thelvas's suspended form and shuddered. They tested the cognitive psychologist next, then the philosopher. Same result. Every human mind had the recursive architecture that Valkyrie consciousness couldn't process. It's not a defense mechanism, Sima said during the research team's meeting that evening. It's just how we think. We evolved metacognition, the ability to think about thinking. It gave us language, art, science, philosophy. But to a telepath who expects linear memory, it's a trap. A senior Valkyrie scientist named Vethseros stood up. He was ancient, his skin almost black with age, his eyes dulled by millennia of absorbed experiences. I must tell you something that the Dominion has kept secret for 3,000 years. This is not the first time a Valkyrie has encountered a mind they couldn't read. The room fell silent. There was a species, Vethseros continued, the Quilnari. 600 years ago, we attempted to screen them for assembly membership. 3 of our inquisitors made contact with Quilnari minds. All 3 fell into comas. They never woke up. What happened to the Quilnari? James asked, though he feared he knew the answer. They were classified as incompatible with galactic civilization. They were quarantined to their home system and forbidden from leaving. As far as I know, they're still there, isolated, waiting for us to change our minds. Vethseros looked at each human in turn. The Dominion will propose the same for humanity. Quarantine, isolation, for the safety of telepathic species. That's unacceptable, Sima said firmly. Humanity has the right to join the galactic community. Humanity has minds that can trap and destroy Valkyrie consciousness, Vethseros countered. How can we allow such a dangerous species to spread across the galaxy? We're not dangerous, Dr. Chen protested. We didn't choose to evolve this way. Neither did the Quilnari. They were still quarantined. The philosopher, Dr. Amara Ose, spoke for the first time. She was an elderly woman with thoughtful eyes. Perhaps we're asking the wrong question. Instead of asking how to make human minds safe for Valkyrie telepaths, we should ask, why do Valkyrie consciousness fail when encountering recursion? That's not possible to change, Vethseros said. The Valkyrie mind is what it is. We evolved to absorb linear memories. We cannot suddenly become capable of processing infinite loops. Maybe not. But what if the problem isn't with either species individually, but with the attempt to force them to interface? What if Valkyrie simply shouldn't try to read human minds? That defeats the purpose of screening, Vethseros argued. Without memory reading, we cannot verify species compatibility. We cannot detect hidden threats. We cannot maintain galactic peace. Can't you? Amara challenged. Or have you simply become dependent on telepathic dominance because it's easier than trust? The words hung in the air like an accusation. James saw several Valkyrie stiffen, their silver eyes flashing with anger, but Vethseros looked thoughtful. The Dominion has ruled for 3,000 years, the ancient Valkyrie said slowly. We have prevented wars, stopped genocides, maintained order across 1,000 systems, all because we could see into the hearts of potential enemies and stop threats before they emerged. You're suggesting we abandon that power. I'm suggesting, Amara said gently, that your power might be more limited than you realized. If human minds can trap your inquisitors, what other species might have similar defenses you've never encountered? What if telepathic dominance only works on species with linear consciousness? A younger Valkyrie scientist named Mira Seth spoke up. Actually, Dr. Ose might be right. I've been reviewing our screening records. Of 412 species we've successfully screened, 407 have linear consciousness. Only 5 show any signs of recursive thinking, and those signs are minimal compared to humans. What are you saying? Vethseros asked. I'm saying that the Valkyrie Dominion's power might be much more fragile than we thought. We can read most minds because most minds are simple enough for us to process, but truly complex recursive consciousness, we can't handle it. We never could. The implications crashed through the room like a wave. For 3,000 years, the Valkyrie had been the ultimate authority, the unquestionable power that maintained galactic order. But what if that power only worked on simple minds? What if species like humans, like the Quilnari, whose consciousness was too complex, too recursive, too self-referential for Valkyrie telepathy to comprehend? The Quilnari, James said suddenly. Are they still alive? Still in quarantine? Vethsaros nodded, slowly.
We need to contact them, Seema said. If they have the same recursive consciousness, they might know how to explain it in a way that helps us cure Thelvis. For the first time, a flicker of hope appeared on the Valkyrie scientists' faces. 3 days later, a Quilnari delegation arrived at Nexus Prime. They were small beings, covered in crystalline spines that gave them their name, with compound eyes that saw in dimensions humans couldn't perceive. For 600 years, they had been prisoners in their own system, forbidden from joining the galaxy because their minds were incompatible. The leader, whose name translated roughly as Shimmer of Dawn, examined Thelvis with her multifaceted eyes. Yes, she said in a voice like wind chimes, we know this trap well. 3 of your inquisitors did the same to themselves when they touched Quilnari minds. You call it recursive consciousness. We call it the mirror maze. When you think about your own thinking, you create infinite reflections of self. Can you help him? Seema asked. Perhaps, but first you must understand something. This is not a flaw in our consciousness or yours. This is evolution's gift. Species with mirror minds can think about thinking, imagine imagining, dream about dreaming. We create art, philosophy, science that linear minds cannot conceive. We are not broken, we are advanced. Shimmer of Dawn turned to the assembled Valkyrie scientists. Your telepathy works on simple minds, but consciousness at our level, we are labyrinths you cannot navigate. And now that humans have joined the galaxy, you must accept a truth you've hidden for centuries. Your dominance is over, not because we defeated you, but because we've evolved beyond your ability to control. The words were not spoken in anger, but in statement of fact, and watching the Valkyrie scientists' faces, James saw the moment they realized their 3,000-year reign as the galaxy's mental overlords was ending. But first, they had to save Thelvis, and in doing so, they would discover that the human gift for recursive thinking was more than just a defense. It was a key to transforming consciousness itself. The revolution had begun.